Every Monday, the Carry On crew arrives here, the Departure Lounge, before the adventure begins. This is where we will slow down for just a little while and talk about travel, laugh a little, learn a little, and hopefully save ourselves from making a few expensive mistakes. Because let's be honest, vacations are too expensive to keep learning everything the hard way. So, welcome aboard. Hey, Carry On crew. Welcome to episode number one of Travel Talk. I'm Christy, and I'm so glad you are here. Whether you're watching from your couch, your office, your favorite recliner, or maybe you're one of those lucky people who's already sitting by a pool somewhere. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me. Now, I hope you've got something to drink: coffee, tea, water, Kool-Aid, or if you're already on vacation, go ahead and grab something frozen with a tiny umbrella in it. I won't judge you. Matter of fact, I'm probably just a little bit jealous. Around here, we believe travel should leave you with memories, not migraines. So every Monday, we're going to sit down together, have some honest conversations, share a few laughs, bust a few travel myths, and hopefully help you spend your vacation making memories instead of solving problems. Because here's something that I've learned: travel isn't stressful, poor planning is stressful. Travel isn't overwhelming, trying to figure everything out by yourself is overwhelming. And vacations, they're supposed to fill you back up, not wear you out. Now, before we jump into today's conversation, let's do something that's going to become a tradition around here. Every week, I want to know where you're watching from. Seriously now. One of my favorite things about travel is realizing just how connected we all are. Somebody's watching from Mississippi. Somebody else is watching from California. Somebody's planning their first cruise. Somebody else has already been to 20 countries. Somebody else is watching while they're folding laundry, and somebody is sitting at an airport gate wishing boarding would hurry up. So tell me where you're checking in from today. Drop your city or your state. Or if you're traveling already, tell me where you are. I read the comments. I really do. And don't be surprised if I give you a shout out in a future episode. Because this isn't just my show. This is our community, the Carry On crew. And I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of fun together. So, can we talk for a minute? Have you ever come home from a vacation and somebody asked, "So, how was your trip?" And your answer was, "It was nice." Nice, not amazing, not unforgettable, not life changing, just nice. There's nothing wrong with nice. But when you spend thousands of dollars taking vacation time from work, packed for days, driven to the airport, stood in security lines, waited through delays, finally made it to your destination, don't you think your vacation ought to be a little more than nice? Because I do. Because here's what I think has happened. Somewhere along the way, we started measuring vacations by where we went instead of how they made us feel. We become collectors, collecting passport stamps, collecting countries, collecting cruise ships, collecting resorts, collecting pictures. But collecting memories, those are two very different things. Now, I know people who have traveled all over the world and still come home exhausted. And I know people who have stayed just a few hours from home and come back completely refreshed. Why? Because one vacation fits their life, the other one fits somebody else's Instagram feed. And that's what I want us to talk about today. Because I think a lot of people are chasing vacations when what they're really looking for is rest or connection or joy. They can also be looking for adventure, or maybe they just want to feel like themselves again. That's a whole lot different than booking a resort because somebody on TikTok said it was the place to be. We're going to unpack all of that today. Because if your vacation isn't giving what it's supposed to give, it may not be your destination that's the problem. It may be the way we've been taught to think about travel. And once we change that, everything changes. Let's talk about it. You know what I think? I think somewhere along the way, we started believing that the bigger the vacation, the better the vacation. And I don't know who started that rumor, but bless their heart, they were wrong. Because I've learned something after years of traveling. The destination doesn't make the vacation, the experience does. Now think about it. Just think about it. Have you ever heard somebody say, "Oh, we went to Hawaii," and 5 minutes later, all they talked about was how crowded it was, how the hotel wasn't what they expected, how they spent half the trip arguing, or how they were so busy trying to see everything that they came home needing another vacation? Now, compare that to somebody who spent a quiet weekend in a cabin or a little beach town, or maybe on a cruise where they finally turned their phone off. And they came home saying, "I haven't felt that relaxed in years." Same amount of vacation time, completely different experience. Why, you ask? Because one person planned a trip, the other person planned how they wanted to feel. Soak that in. And that's a question we don't ask ourselves nearly enough. How do I want to feel? Not where do I want to go? How do I want to feel? Because those are two very different questions. Maybe this year you don't need excitement. Maybe you need peace. Maybe you don't need another itinerary packed from 6 in the morning to midnight. Maybe you need permission to sleep late, to eat breakfast slowly, to sit on a balcony listening to the ocean without feeling guilty because you're not doing enough. Can anybody relate to that? I know I can. Let me tell you something I've noticed. People spend months planning the wedding, years planning for retirement, weeks planning for Christmas. But somehow, when it comes to vacations, we think, "Oh, well, we'll just figure it out." Really? The thing you've been looking forward to all year, you're just going to wing it. That's like showing up at Thanksgiving without a turkey and hoping somebody else remembered it. It doesn't work. And then people wonder why they are stressed before they even unpack. Now, can I confess something? There was a time when I thought seeing more meant I was traveling better. If I wasn't checking off another destination, I felt like I was missing out. You know what cured me of that? Actually traveling. Because eventually I realized I couldn't remember the names of half the places I rushed through. But I could remember sitting in a little cafe, having the best conversation, watching a sunset that wasn't even on the itinerary, and meeting people I'll probably never see again. But I will never forget. Those are the moments that really stay with you, not how many countries you've checked off a list. Now let's talk about social media for a second, because social media is wonderful until it isn't. You scroll for 5 minutes and suddenly everybody seems to be in Greece or Bali or on an overwater bungalow or hanging out at one of those infinity pools that make you, and it makes you wonder if people ever actually are in the water. And before you know it, you're comparing your dream vacation, somebody else's highlight reel. Here's what those 30 seconds of video that don't show: the delayed flight, the rain, the crowded beach, the construction next door, the 3 hours they spent trying to get that perfect picture, or the fact that maybe, just maybe, they didn't even enjoy the destination as much as they wanted you to think they did. That's why I always tell people, don't borrow somebody else's dream vacation, build your own. Before you ever decide where you're going, ask yourself one simple question: what do I need from this vacation? Not what does everybody else recommend. What do I need? Maybe you need to reconnect with your spouse. Maybe you spent so much time taking care of everybody else. You forgot what it feels like to take care of yourself. Maybe you want to celebrate a milestone. Maybe you're grieving. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you simply need something beautiful to look forward to. Those are the things that should determine your vacation. Not what everybody else is posting online. Because once you know what your heart needs, choosing the right vacation becomes so much easier. And friends, we're just getting started. All right, y'all know what time it is. It's time for Bless Their Heart. Now, if you're not from the South, let me explain. Bless their heart can mean a lot of things. Sometimes it means I generally feel bad for you. Other times, well, let's just say it's our polite way of saying, what in the world were you thinking? And today we're talking about vacation expectations. Because bless our hearts, we've all been there. Every single one of us. And I know I have. Have you ever noticed that people plan vacations like they're trying to win a contest? They've got breakfast at 7, excursion at 9, shopping at 11, lunch at 1, another excursion at 3, dinner reservations at 6, a show at 8, nightlife until midnight. And then they wonder why they're exhausted by Wednesday. Who are we racing? Who told us every minute had to be scheduled? I don't know about y'all, but if I come home needing 2 more days off just to recover from vacation, something went wrong. It did. Vacation shouldn't feel like a second job. Then there's this person, you know the one. They spend more time looking for the perfect photo than actually enjoying where they are. They've got everybody waiting. Hold on. Take another one. No, the sun wasn't right. Let's try again. 27 pictures later, the food's cold, the boat has left, everybody's irritated, and they're still editing filters. Is that you? I've been there. Now, don't get me wrong. Take that picture. I'm taking pictures too. I love looking back at my trips. But don't spend so much time documenting the moment that you forget to actually live it. Some of my favorite travel memories don't have a single photograph, but I can tell you exactly how they made me feel. Now, can we talk about this one? Because this one gets people every single time. I found the cheapest resort online. Okay, but why was it the cheapest? Nobody asked that question. Sometimes you can find an incredible deal. Absolutely. Other times, there's a reason for that. Maybe the beach isn't swimmable. Maybe the food gets terrible reviews. Maybe it's 30 minutes from everything that you actually wanted to do. Maybe the rooms haven't been updated in 15 years. Price tells part of the story. Value tells the rest. There's a difference. A vacation doesn't become a bargain if you spend the whole week wishing you'd booked somewhere else. Now here's another one. I booked it because everybody else was going. Can I ask you something? Since when did everybody else become your travel planner? Just because your coworker loved the resort doesn't mean you will. Maybe they wanted nonstop parties. You wanted peace and quiet. Maybe they traveled with toddlers and you're celebrating your anniversary. Maybe they wanted nightlife until 2 in the morning and you wanted to be asleep by 10 p.m. Neither vacation is wrong. They're just different. And that's exactly the point. The best vacation isn't the one everybody else recommends. It's the one that fits you. Then there's my checklist traveler. I've got to see everything. Have you ever met somebody who came back from Europe and visited 6 countries in 7 days? I always wondered, did you actually visit those places or did you just change trains a lot? Sometimes slower is better. Sometimes spending 3 days in one place teaches you more than racing through 5 destinations. There's something beautiful about lingering, ordering another cup of coffee, walking streets with no agenda, finding that little bakery that wasn't on anybody's list. That's where the magic usually happens. And it's not because it was expensive, not because it was famous, because you finally slowed down long enough to notice it. And you know what all these vacations have in common? They're giving pressure to see more, do more, spend more, post more, compare more. Friends, vacations were never meant to become another competition. They're supposed to remind us that life is about moments, not checklists. And if nobody has told you lately, you have permission to travel at your own pace, to skip the excursion, to sleep in, to order dessert, to sit by the water with absolutely nothing planned. Sometimes doing nothing ends up being the best part of the whole trip. So today's Bless Their Heart goes to all of us. Because if we're honest, most of us have made at least one of those mistakes. I know I have. But the good news, now we know better, and when we know better, we travel better. Now let's talk about what responsible travelers do differently. I'm talking about my favorite people, responsible adults. Now, before anybody gets nervous, I'm not talking about all people who never have fun. Matter of fact, some of the most fun people I've ever traveled with are responsible adults. They laugh hard, they eat dessert first sometimes, like me. They'll dance at the silent disco. They'll stay up later than they actually even plan. But here's the difference. They've learned that a little preparation creates a whole lot more freedom. That's what we're talking about today. Not perfection, preparation. Because responsible adults understand something that took me a while to learn. A great vacation doesn't begin when you arrive. It begins long before you ever leave home. Responsible adults don't ask, where's everybody going this year? They ask, what kind of experience do I want? Those are 2 completely different questions. If you ask where everybody is going, you'll probably end up following a trend. And I've been there. If you ask what kind of experience you want, you'll end up following your heart. Maybe this season of life calls for adventure. Maybe it calls for rest. Maybe it calls for celebration. Maybe it calls for healing. Maybe it's reconnecting with your spouse after months of saying, we really need to spend some time together. Maybe it's finally taking that mother-daughter trip you're talked about for years. Or gathering 3 generations of your family around one dinner table. The destination matters, but the reason you travel, that's what gives the destination meaning. Now, one thing I love asking people is tell me about your favorite vacation. It's not because I'm being nosy. It's because their answer tells me almost everything that I need to know. Some people, they light up talking about museums. Others can't stop talking about the food. Some tell me about snorkeling. Others remember the live music every single night. Some want to be the first ones off the ship every morning. And others are perfectly happy sitting on their balcony with a cup of coffee watching the ocean wake up. Now, neither one is wrong. They're just different travelers. And here's the problem: a lot of people book vacations that don't match their personality. Then they're disappointed when the vacation doesn't fit. I mean, furious. Well, if you're an early to bed traveler, you're probably not going to enjoy a resort that's famous for parties until 2 in the morning. And if you love exploring, you may not enjoy spending 7 straight days sitting by the pool. Knowing your travel personality is just as important as knowing your budget, maybe even more important. Now, can I let you in on a little secret? There is no perfect vacation. There's no perfect resort, no perfect cruise, no perfect destination. Every place has something. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it's seaweed, sometimes it's construction, sometimes your flights get delayed. Sometimes it's your suitcase decides to take its own vacation. If that's ever happened to you, that's happened to us, and you'll do carry on from now on. Travel is still real life. It's just real life with a better view. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is creating memories that are bigger than the inconveniences. Because years from now, you're probably not going to remember that your flight was delayed by an hour. But you'll remember laughing with your family while you waited. You'll remember the stranger who became a friend. You'll remember the sunset, the music, the smell of fresh bread walking down a little street you've never even seen before. Those are the things that really stay with us. Think about the last thing you bought. Maybe it was a new purse, a gadget, a pair of shoes. Can you remember exactly how excited you were the day you bought it? Probably. Now think about something you experienced 5 years ago. Maybe it was your first cruise, your honeymoon, a family vacation, a weekend getaway with your best friend. Notice how your face changes when you remember it? That's because experiences have a way of growing sweeter over time. Stuff usually gets older, experience becomes stories. The stories become part of who we are. That's why I tell people invest in moments. They pay dividends long after the tan fades. People often think luxury is about marble bathrooms or butlers or champagne waiting in the room. Now, don't get me wrong, those things are nice. But the older I get, the more I realize luxury looks different. Luxury is having breakfast without checking your email. Luxury is watching the sun come up because you want to, not because you're rushing to work. Luxury is hearing your spouse laugh without somebody interrupting the conversation. Luxury is having nowhere you have to be for the next few hours. Time, uninterrupted time, that's one of the greatest gifts a vacation can give us. And it's also one of the easiest gifts to waste if we fill every minute with obligations. Have you ever been somewhere absolutely beautiful? And instead of enjoying it, you were already thinking about what came next. I need to get ready for dinner. I need to make sure we're on time. I wonder what tomorrow's schedule looks like. I've done that, and maybe you have too. Responsible adults have learned something. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is stop. Look around. Take a deep breath. Listen. Smell the ocean. Feel the sunshine. Watch the people. Be completely present. Because the moment you're rushing through today may become the memory you treasure tomorrow. So, what makes a responsible traveler? It's not how many countries you visited, it's not your airline status, it's not whether you fly first class or coach. It's someone who travels with intention, someone who understands that vacations are not about impressing other people, they're about creating space for the people and moments that matter most. That's the kind of traveler I hope we all become, including me, because I'm still learning too now. Every trip teaches me something new, and that's one of the reasons I love travel so much. It keeps reminding me that there's always something left to discover, not just about the world, but about ourselves. And speaking of learning lessons, let me tell you one that travel taught me the hard way. All right, this is one of my favorite parts of the show. It's called Ask Me How I Know. Now, if you spent any amount of time around me, you probably heard me say those four words more than once. Because most of the things I teach, I didn't learn from a textbook. I learned them by living them. Sometimes the easiest way, and sometimes the expensive way. So today's lesson, just because a vacation looks good, doesn't mean it's going to feel good. Ask me how I know. You see, there was a time when I thought I had to squeeze every single thing into every single trip. If there was an excursion, I wanted to do it. If there was a famous restaurant, I wanted to eat there. If there was a landmark, I wanted the picture. If somebody said, "Oh, you've got to go here," I'd write it down. By the time the trip rolled around, my itinerary looked less like a vacation and more like somebody's full-time job. From the moment I woke up, I was looking at the clock. Like, we've got 30 minutes for breakfast. We've got to leave by 9. We've got tickets at 10:30. We've got lunch at 1, shopping at 3, dinner at 6:30. And before I knew it, I wasn't even enjoying the trip. I was just managing the trip. Now, have you ever done that? You get back home, and instead of talking about the memories, you spend the next week talking about how tired you are. And that's when it hit me. I had planned every minute except the moments. I had scheduled activities, but I hadn't left room for memories to happen. And those are two completely different things. Now, some of my favorite travel memories, they weren't planned at all. They happened because we slowed down long enough to notice them. A conversation with another couple while waiting on a ferry. A tiny cafe we almost walked past because it wasn't on anybody's list. My list. Watching the sunset a little longer because nobody was rushing us to the next thing. Laughing until our stomachs hurt over something completely silly that probably wouldn't even make sense if I tried to explain it now. Those are the moments that I remember, not because they cost extra and not because they came with a ticket, but because they made me feel something. And that's when I stopped asking, what else can I fit into this trip? And I started asking myself, what do I want to leave room for? There's a big difference. Because when every minute is planned, there's no room for surprises. No room for wandering. No room for walking down a side street. No room for saying, you know what? Let's just stay here for a little longer. Travel has taught me that some of life's best moments don't come with a reservation. They happen when we're fully present. You know, people sometimes ask me, Christy, what's your favorite place you've ever been? And honestly, that's one of the hardest questions to answer because it's usually not the place that makes it unforgettable. It's what's happened there. It's who I was with. It's the conversation we had. It's the laughter. It's the peace I felt. It's the reminder that life is bigger than my daily routine. That's what stays with me. So if there's one lesson I hope you take away from today's story, and it's this: don't spend your entire vacation trying to collect destinations. Collect moments. Those are the souvenirs that never get lost. Those are the stories you'll be telling 10 years from now. And those are the memories that make a vacation worth every penny. So that's today's Ask Me How I Know. And I'd love to hear yours. What's one travel lesson that you learned the hard way? Maybe you packed too much. Maybe you almost missed a flight. Maybe you booked the wrong hotel. Or maybe, just like me, you discovered that the best memories weren't on the itinerary. Leave it in the comments because somebody in our carry-on crew might read your story. And it'll save them from making that same mistake. Well, we've made it to one of my favorite parts of the show. This is Christy's boarding pass. Now, every time we get together here in this departure lounge, I want to leave you with something that you can actually use. Not 27 things that you're going to forget by tomorrow. Just a few simple reminders that'll help you travel a little smarter and enjoy the journey a whole lot more. So if you're ready, here's your boarding pass for today. The first thing I want you to remember is this: stop chasing somebody else's vacation. I know it's tempting. I know. You see a beautiful picture, a viral video, a resort that everybody's talking about, and suddenly you start thinking, maybe that's where I should go. But here's the thing: their vacation doesn't have to become your vacation. Their dream isn't automatically your dream. Travel is personal. What fills one person's cup may completely drain someone else's. If your idea of the perfect day is reading a book by the ocean, don't let anybody make you feel guilty because you skipped that zip line excursion. If you love museums, go to the museums. If you love food, build your vacation around food. If you want to spend an entire afternoon doing absolutely nothing, then do absolutely nothing. You're not traveling to impress the internet. You're traveling to enjoy life. So give yourself permission to travel your way. This one has changed the way I plan every single trip. Before you ask, where should I go? Ask yourself, how do I want to feel? Do you want to feel rested, inspired, adventurous, celebrated, connected, peaceful? Because once you know how you want to feel, the destination becomes much easier to choose. You stop picking places because they're popular, and you start picking places because they fit the season of your life. That's when vacation begins to feel different. Not because they're more expensive, because they're more intentional. Now, this last one might be the hardest for some of us. Leave room for the unexpected. I know some of y'all love a schedule. Every hour planned, every reservation confirmed, every activity color coded, and there's nothing wrong with being organized. I like being organized too. But don't become so committed to the schedule that you miss the surprises. Some of the best travel memories happen between the plans. It's the little cafe you almost walked past, the conversation with another traveler, the sunset you decided to watch just a few minutes longer, the local shop you wandered into because something caught your eye. Those moments don't usually show up on an itinerary, but somehow they're the ones we remember the longest. So next time you travel, leave a little white space in your calendar. Your future memories will thank you. Before we meet again next Monday, I want to give you a little challenge. If you've got a vacation coming up, or if you're just dreaming about one, grab a notebook, open the Notes app on your phone, or write it on a sticky note. Then answer this one question: how do I want to feel when I come home from this vacation? Not where do I want to go, not how much do I want to spend, not what destination is trending. How do I want to feel? Because that answer might completely change the way you plan your next adventure. And if you do the challenge, come back next week and tell me what you discovered. I have a feeling some of your answers are going to surprise you. And that's your boarding pass for today. I hope you tuck it away and take it with you on your next adventure. Well, Carry On Crew, we've reached our final boarding call for today. I hope you enjoyed spending a little time with me here in the Departure Lounge. My hope is that every time you leave here, you don't just know more about travel. You feel more confident about it. Because confidence changes everything. I love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, have you ever taken a vacation that looked amazing on paper, but just didn't feel the way you thought it would? What would you do differently now? Your story might be exactly what someone else in our Carry On crew needs to hear. And if today's travel talk made you think, made you smile, or helped you see travel in a new way, would you do me a favor? Share this episode with someone who loves to travel. And if you're not already part of the Carry On crew, I'd love for you to join us every Monday right here in the Departure Lounge, because we've got a whole lot more adventures waiting for us. We're talking about airport systems responsible adults need. No chaos. Trust me, if airports make you anxious, you don't want to miss it. So until then, keep your carry-on light, your passports ready, and your heart open for whatever adventure comes next. Now, carry on.